to the other side to demonstrate that they were going through this commitment together. So God says to Abram, I'm making a promise to you. Go get me some animals. And this is where it starts getting weird, okay? Because first of all, Abram gets a lot of animals. He doesn't just get one. God says, bring me a lot of animals. I want birds, I want a goat, I want a heifer. And Abram lines them all up in a row. So it's not just Abram's getting ready to walk through one animal. God, may I be cut in half if I ever break my promise to you. He's not going through one animal. He's going to go through a whole string of animals, a whole line of animals. And the birds he couldn't cut in half because they're too small anyway, so he just kind of put one on one side and one on the other side to kind of be symbolic of that. And he lays down all the animals, and I imagine Abram is thinking, okay, I can't see God. Where is God? He's just talking to me somehow. I don't know how God is talking to him. It says in a vision. Maybe it's audibly, maybe it's in a dream, maybe he's kind of in a trance, I don't know. But Abram's the one cutting the animals. Abram's the one lying the animals on the ground. And now what's the next step of the process? The next step of the process is make the promise and then walk through, right? Look what happens. Verse 12, as the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep. And a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own. And they will be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. That's the prophecy about Egypt. Enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your fathers in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. He's expressing the promise more deeply. This is the statement of the promise. God is saying to Abram, know that I'm going to take care of you and your family for 400 years while they're in slavery, and then they're going to come back here. This is the promise. So step 1 of the covenant has been done with the animals. Step 2 of the covenant is happening right now. God's making the promise. Verse 17, when the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, to your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephaites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. All these other people, you're going to take their land. But verse 17, step 1, cut the animals. Step 2, make the promise. Step 3, walk through. But the torch goes through. Abram never walks through. You see, this passage never tells us that Abram makes a covenant with God. This passage tells us that God makes a covenant with Abram. That God's the one who comes to him and says, I'm going to be your shield. I'm going to be your reward. I'm going to make this covenant to you. Set it all up exactly like a covenant should be. We're going to do the promise thing exactly like the promise thing should be, but the only one talking is God. He doesn't say, okay, Abram, your turn. What are you going to do for me? State your vows. No, it's just God telling Abram, this is what I'm going to do for you. And now when Abram wakes up, God is making himself visible, present in this symbolic form with this firing, smoking pot of some kind that's floating and passing through the middle of these animals. And Abram is like in awe. Abram's supposed to walk through the animals. He thought he was the one who was making this covenant with God. But no, it's a one-way thing. It's a one-sided deal. God is making the covenant with Abram. All Abram had to do was cut up the animals and lay them down. And then be there to listen and watch. The Lord made the covenant. If you're taking notes, write that down. The Lord made the covenant. Abram cut the animals. Let's go on. Flip a couple pages and we're going to go to Exodus chapter 6. Beginning in verse 2, we read, God also appeared to Moses. I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty. But by my name, the Lord, I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan where they lived as aliens. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore say to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them, and I will redeem you with my outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your God. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians, and I will bring you to the land I swore with uplifted hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am the Lord. See, God here now is going to another level. And he's saying, not only am I going to make my covenant with Abraham in the past, I'm going to make my covenant with the people of Israel, the descendants of Abraham. He says, I made a covenant before. I remember that covenant today. I'm doing it again. And how much do you see in this line where God says, I will do this if you do that. I will do this if you do that. I will do this if you do that. No. God says, I will do this. And I will do this. And I will do this. I will give you this possession, this land. I will confirm my covenant. I will bring you out. I will free you. I will take you as my own. I am the Lord your God. I will bring you to the land I swore you. I will give it to you. Every one of those sentences begins with I will, I will, I will. God says to these people, I'm making a covenant. Jot this down if you're taking the notes. The Lord made the covenant. The people just needed to walk. God says, I'm going to bring you out of the land. Well, that means when I do that, you're going to have to walk. You're going to have to leave the land. When it's time to go, it's time to go. You're going to have to go. But other than that, God's going to do everything. I'm going to meet your needs. I'm going to deliver you. But when it's time for delivery, you're going to have to actually walk away. One more. Jeremiah chapter 31 is where we start this next one. The Bibles we passed out, it's on page 552. I'm going to pick it up in verse 31. And God says, the time is coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their forefathers when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they broke my covenant, though I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. See, the Israelites, all they had to do was just walk. All they had to do was just walk with God. Where he was going, go with him. That's all they had to do. God was making the promise. He was making the commitment to them.